somebody who is now becoming a prominent leader in the community, and she had explained to me that she thought she was the first person to come up with the referendum idea. So I think it's on everybody's minds, either for or against Newbury. And you know, the only reason that I started getting involved with it, to be honest with you, was because I do, in my heart, have a concern that, okay, so say we pass a referendum, say the community still wants a school district in Newbury, we pass the referendum, do I want for my children who are 6 and 7 years old to experience the same Newbury that everybody's been unhappy with? So the first thing that I need to say is that Newbury schools is, it's a good school. Despite what people say about it, despite state report cards, all that, it's a good school. We all know it is. We all know people that we went to school with who have gone on to become extremely successful attorneys, physicians, nurses, anything, small business owners, all of them. Newbury produces those people, so it's already got good bones. But it can be improved upon. I don't think any of us disagree with that. And that's where really I started to focus in on the school. Where could it be improved upon? How could it be improved upon? So that's that. We can go to the next slide, please. So yeah, I just want to give a couple thanks first. First, I want to thank my wife and my kids. They couldn't be here tonight because we're all sick, but my wife Amanda she's a warrior goddess. Honestly, she is one of the strongest people I know, and she supports everything we're doing here 100% because she loves Newbury. She's a graduate from Newbury, and she believes that Newbury can be modernized if that's something that the community wants to do. So I gotta thank them. I gotta thank my kids because that's the only reason I'm involved. It is the only reason I'm involved. I'm a father. My kids may use this school district one day, and if they do, I want them to go to one of the coolest, best schools in Ohio. That's true. I want to thank Commissioner Lennon, State Board of Education Rep Sarah Fowler, Dr. Hoynes, Cindy Sisagoy of the 2030 District, Nicole Stika, who among many other titles is the Regional Director of the U.S. Green Building Council, Margaret Hewitt, CEO and co-founder of the Construction Green Team, and Mark Oney of the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. All of them have given me their time and provided me with their experiences and their network to help me develop my knowledge base of this whole situation. Everyone who's participated in the survey so far, thank you very much for that. And everyone who's here tonight, thank you for your time coming out and learning more. So tonight's agenda, we're just going to do this quick little PowerPoint here, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. Now, again, I do not have all the answers. I don't. But hopefully, as a community, we can come together and flush out some answers, flush out some roadblocks, and flush out some opportunities to overcome those roadblocks. Look at that guy. So that's me. That's my wife, Amanda, my kids, Uriel and Amelia. So I have this slide up there just to give you guys a little bit more information on who I am. I'm a homeowner in Newbury, I'm 36, married, 2 kids. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Integrated Health Sciences and Human Services. I'm a small business owner, and I became interested in the school district 2 years ago. I'm not going to lie, it was just really by way of poor performance as a community member. I have tremendous respect for Kimya and Maggie. I went to school with them. I have no ill intentions toward them or bad blood or anything like that. But honestly, when I heard they were running for school board, I was like, oh yeah, they'll go in there and fix it. Because that's what you do, right? When you're an uninformed voter, you just kind of see things and you're like, oh yeah, it sounds good, great, go. But then, you know, as things progress, it turned out to be a little different. So I tuned in more when I realized my expectations were misinformed, and when I tuned in, I began asking questions, and as I investigated my questions, I began finding answers, and that's really led me to this point here today. Next slide, please. So I believe that a school district plays an important role in self-governance and should be preserved. I believe that public education is evolving, and closing and transferring our school district is an outdated method of addressing our situation. I believe that we can modernize our district to produce greater outcomes for students, educators, and our community. So why the referendum? Well, one, there's a large number of Newburians who wish to keep a school in the town. I agree with them. To be honest with you, I'm kind of honored to lead the way if that's what it has to be, because the referendum efforts are due process. So it happens whether or not anybody makes use of it. Does that make sense to you? The referendum window is going to open up. When the ESC votes on the territory transfer, there's an immediate window. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. When the ESC, oh, that does sound a lot better, doesn't it? Ooh, yeah. When the ESC votes on this, the referendum window is going to open immediately. Whether or not anybody decides to take action on that, it's still going to open. So, I mean, I'm willing to do it just for due process sake. That's just how I see it. So the people of Newbury are going to have the final say. That's what's really cool about it. It's like the one time that the government allows the people to kind of be in a state of anarchy. It's like the government makes a decision and then they hand it back to the people and say, okay, are we making the decision you want? So if I walk around and I try to collect signatures and I collect 2 signatures, I'm fine with that. That means we put it to bed and we move on. The town has spoken, but so many people in the town are outspoken about the fact that they want to keep a school in the township. That's piqued my interest, and I want to help those people. So if the referendum is successful, it will provide a 2-year window of amnesty before it can be attempted again. And I think a lot of work can get done in those 2 years, and we're going to explore some of those options tonight. So this slide is just going back to my comment about due process. So you don't have to read it all, but basically what it says is, yeah, the state of Ohio has created the ballot initiative for the people to exercise their voices when state agencies make decisions that affect everybody's lives. So whether or not anybody goes out and collects signatures, this window is still going to open. So we could not go out and collect signatures, and that window is still going to be open for 30 days for signatures to be collected. And if no signatures are collected, then they just close that window and move on. If the signatures are collected, then you can go to the next, yeah. It may be kind of hard to read. I don't know how updated this is, but you see a little bit of a timetable here of what would be happening on the ESC's part. So if you shoot down to, I guess, August 21st, 2019 to September 20th, 2019, referendum period on ESC, resolution setting transfer date. So we shoot down to the 23rd. If no transfer, referendum is filed, transfer effective July 1st. December 11th, if valid and sufficient transfer referendum petition is certified, Board of Elections submits the question to Newbury electors. So then you get to vote on it. And obviously if you get the signatures on the referendum petition, then you're probably going to have the votes, to prevent the territory transfer from taking place. So that's just a little bit of the bureaucracy side of the referendum processes. So let's just imagine, let's live in a hypothetical world where the referendum is successful. Okay, we've now got this 2-year window to effect change in Newbury. What's going to happen? Like I started this out by saying, my concern would be that we pass the referendum out of spite, and then everybody's like, oh, okay, now we've got an independent Newbury and there's nothing going to be done differently. It's going to stay the same. And I think this is a tremendous time for us to modernize the district. I don't think there's ever been a better time to modernize the district than right now. Yeah, we're going to look at some of those options. So what would happen? Let's say the referendum succeeds. So my focus has been that we need to strategically focus on small. embracing our small learning community, keeping our enrollment small, and building our district around that. Newbury has historically been small, and I think what's hurt us the most is we started out small. The baby boomers, they hit, the building was added on to, we added a bunch of space onto the building, and then what happens, the baby boomers age out, and you'll hear everybody say, oh yeah, the 80s was like the highest, and then around the 90s, enrollment started to decline. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it was declining. The way I phrase it is that it was falling back to historical averages. But the problem is that you have all that added space on now. So now you're running a big building it's not right-sized. I think we need to right-size the facility. That's would go very far in lowering the cost of operations and allowing us to stabilize the district, fix the costs, and improve the community. So we got to modernize the district, and like I said, one of the ways I believe we do that is by embracing small strategically. Somebody made a comment that the small school thing has been done in Newbury for years. It really hasn't. We've been small, we've been declining, but we haven't been strategically embracing small and creating our operations around maintaining small. So yeah, living in this fantasy world of mine, how would I do this? The very first way that we do this is we find a superintendent, whether it be Dr. Hoynes, who's in there now, or somebody locally, nationally, that has the experience of operating a small learning community. That's why it's really important to understand the difference between what board members do and what a superintendent does. So the board members are elected by the constituents to set the curriculum and set the vision for the district, but it's the superintendent's job to ensure that the district materializes that vision. So I think a superintendent at the district, whether it be the current one, I'm not knocking anybody, it's not about that, I'm just saying the superintendent is the one that's really going to help create that vision. And what I would really also like to see done to modernize our district is to obtain architectural analysis of constructing a right-sized, green, sustainable facility for the learning community, and also include community space. One of the tools that we're going to look at is House Bill 264. That's one way we can get that done. And I'm going to leave this point off until some other point because everything's going okay right now. But again, so the business cycle is what you do is you plan, you implement, you reevaluate, and then you act on what you reevaluated. So that's kind of a way in those 2 years that we can really see if anything's moving forward to a modernized district, or if at the end of those 2 years, everybody can say, dude, we cannot get this done, it's not going to get done, and now you really need to pack it in. So House Bill 264 is something that, again, was given to me by, I always mess her last name up, Cindy Sisagoy. I had a great meeting with her at Key Tower a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about a whole bunch of different things, but I was talking about the school district, some of our challenges, and it seems like it's kind of difficult to face these things. And she said, you know what, you need to check out House Bill 264. House Bill 264 is an unbelievable tool for us right now with the current building that we have. So basically, long and the short is, the state will allow you to borrow money without having to put that burden on the taxpayers, and they let you pay the money back through the cost savings that you see through the efficiencies that you create, okay? So if we go to the next slide, some of the efficiencies that you create are, like if you look at G, okay? Putting geothermal into the building. I don't know, are we still running on, does anybody know if we're running on a boiler, old boiler in the building? Here we are? Okay. Okay, so you can imagine that's probably old, outdated, and inefficient. If we did geothermal, well then obviously everybody knows the efficiencies that are created by geothermal, bringing the ambient ground temperature up into the building, helping establish the level temperatures in the building, cuts heating costs down. Putting in solar energy, if you look at number E, okay, they got solar panels up there. If you look at D, they're literally taking out sections of the roof now, and this isn't just this example. I mean, these are new modern buildings all across the nation. They're putting these glass lights in now because glass itself is super efficient now. They can fill them with gas, which allows the heat to stay in, allows the sunlight to come in, stay in. Again, improving your efficiencies. Gray water, that's another way to create efficiencies in the building. I just think it's pretty cool to have the living garden up on the roof, although I don't, it's up to the community, right? I don't know if you want your kids up on Newbury School planting flowers, but I wouldn't mind. So these are just some examples, right? It may not be appropriate for Newbury, but these are examples of ways that we can create these efficiencies at Newbury. And again, like I said, if we can create the efficiencies, we can lower the operating costs. And through House Bill 264, we can borrow that money from the state at no burden to the taxpayers. We can just pay the state back through does everybody understand that, the difference?
It's subsidized.
Yeah, more or less. So the money that you save by creating the efficiencies, you pay it back to the state for them letting you borrow the money. This is the point where I'm going to let JT come up, and he's going to talk a little bit about the current levies.
Thank you, David. Whoop, that's not good.
No, it's okay. It's just time.
I'll plug that. All right. So I think David's done a good job of kind of outlining the possibilities if the referendum passes. But another thing is to consider is the state of the financials of our school right now. So if you can go to the next slide. One of the claims that's made is when we transfer over to SG is that the taxpayers are going to get a savings. At first look, you can see this is the millage. So $1 per every 1,000 on your home. This is the class 1 millage, the residential and agriculture. You can see that yes, Newbury's higher than West G at first look. And these are numbers from the tax year 2017 school district property tax rates by purpose. So this is right on Ohio taxation. However, this look isn't the complete picture. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Newbury has 2 emergency levies that are expiring here at the end of 2019. So this is when they planned on closing Newbury if the transfer goes through. So this is right out of the maple leaf that the 2 levies, it's 14.5 mil that's falling off of our revenue millage. So you can clearly see once those levies fall off, Newbury's cheaper. It's a less of a tax burden on Newbury's taxpayers. Okay, so now that's very interesting to me. Now the question becomes, can Newbury operate without those millages? Okay, I'm not going to get into the history of those levies, why they were passed, whether Newbury needed them or not. I'm not on the school board, I'm not the treasurer, right? So let's go to the next slide though. So this is the latest 5-year forecast for the actual 2018 numbers. You can see that Newbury has collected revenue of $9.77 million in those years, and that includes the very little state help that we get. Like it's insane how little the state of Ohio helps fund Newbury schools. It's actually quite ridiculous. So that's another avenue that the school board should really approach the state, saying Newbury's in unique circumstances, and you're really hamstringing our local tax base. They pay state taxes also. That money should come back to Newbury schools. But anyhow, I'll get off that soapbox. So once the levies fall off, it's about what, 2.5 million that fall off the revenue. So we'd only have 7.21 million coming in once you remove those levies. Right now, the school board and the superintendent is leaning the staff. We can argue all day of whether that's the right thing or do. We know that the student-to-teacher ratio is extremely excellent at Newbury, right? We make, depending on what the community wants to do, it's a possibility we can lean it and still meet the mandates by the state, okay? So let's assume that that staff leaning happens and we can maintain the current quality of education we get at Newbury. That takes our operating costs down to 7.87 million. So that only leaves us about 660,000 short deficit. Now we have 5 million saved up. That, well, I wouldn't say 5 million. We'll say 3.4 is what's saved up right now that would go over to West G. It's part of West G's agreement to take us on, right? That contingency they have in there. So I mean, it can last a couple of years only having that sort of deficit, all right? And at that point, the community needs to decide, do we put on new levies to make up that difference? Or do we try to lean more maybe? Maybe we lean the staff, maybe we lean the admin. I don't know. These aren't decisions for us to make. We hire a school board to decide on how to work out these finances. But these are all viable options, not out of the realm of possibility. Meanwhile, you have this stuff that David's talking about. If you can possibly lower the cost of the old building, that could also make up that deficit, right? So there's lots of options there. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is a really cool concept because you hear so much about the cost per pupil. You know, to me, that's not the concern. The concern is what is the burden on the taxpayers to run your district. We have one of the lowest, and this is before those levies drop off and before the leaning, right? We're so much cheaper to run, you know? So one thing that I like saying is, like, would you rather have 100% of your taxes go to 100% of Newbury students? Or would you rather, whatever portion we're giving to West G, to educate whatever percentage Newbury kids are at West G? I don't know if that makes sense. If you want to talk to me later about it and kind of try to iron it out a little more. But that's all I had to say about sort of the financials of the school currently. And it's something, if the referendum passes, we really do need to figure out. And just take somebody who wants to find a solution, right? So, all right. David, I'll give you the mic back.
Yeah, if you go back for 1 second. Newbury passed this. At some point, Newbury was like, yeah, we'll pay $8.8 million for the school district. With those emergency levies, again, JT and I, we were not those people. We can't speak for why those levies were passed, those emergency levies. You know, you hear from one person that there was no plan for that money. It was a hidden budget or whatever, but the people of Newbury, they gave that money. They said, yes, we'll pass these levies. That means they wanted this district to keep going forward. What I'm saying is, if you were gonna pay those emergency levies, and there wasn't even a plan for them, let me give you a plan for the same amount of money. Let's operate this building that we have now, come up with a plan for building a new right-sized facility that will cost the same, if not less than this. I guarantee you it would cost less than that, because if we right-size the facility and it's new, modern, and efficient, I mean, honestly, somebody told me, there was a report done that said it would cost Newbury $20 million to build a new school. I would say this, let's just take it on $30 million. Let's just say we build a $30 million facility, which we would never need. $30 million, that's so much money, seriously. I could imagine what you could build with $30 million, but let's say it's $30 million. We could pass a 30-year construction levy for $1 million a year.
And that's like a 6.8 mil, I think, is what it would end up being.
When
Just one of those two that are expiring.
yeah, we could pass that, and we could pass the 600,000 operating levy, $1.6 million, and it would still be cheaper than this 8.8 once these two emergency levies roll off at the end of the year. So So yeah, I mean, just keep that in mind. I mean, there is a way. Okay, so let's get into what am I talking about here. Here's our current building. We all know it. We all love it. We all sat in those classes. I actually met my wife in that class right there, Mrs. Nelson's science class. Very first time I met her, she got me moved to the back of the class.
She's still pushing you back.
Hey, she's a good woman. But yeah, she knows how to get me in trouble. So it's great. It's a great building, really. And even with all the construction people that I've talked to, they all say, oh man, if you can get good, strong, old construction, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like good old construction. New construction is crap compared to this. But when you get into trying to retrofit these old buildings for new efficiencies, that's when you run into all the problems. You go to remove one piece of equipment and all of a sudden you're into asbestos abatement, or you're into load-bearing wall movement, or you're into a headache of trying to make it work. So in those cases, oftentimes it's actually better to get into new construction. Build it new. That way you can build it, you can program the space, you can totally start over. My idea is, if we focus on small, and my idea of small is like 300 to 500 kids. Seriously, like let's keep it small. If we focus on doing something like that, then what would it take to add in community space? What kind of community space do we want? You know, there's so many examples throughout the state alone of public schools now partnering with outside organizations. Like one example was given to me, Richmond Heights. Richmond Heights partnered with the local library and the YMCA. Local library and the YMCA were like, yeah, you know what, yeah, we'll throw some money into it, we'll take some space up in there, and they turn it into a community learning environment. It's kind of maybe what Burton's proposing to do as well. You know, they're adding in a lot of community space. Why couldn't we do something like that in Newbury? What's stopping us from doing that other than just asking the question and pursuing the answers? Again, a 2-year window is enough time to pursue those questions. So before we move on to the next slide. Okay, now I just have to preface this. This is all hypothetical, okay? These images are pulled from the internet. Nobody has provided me these images. It's not what I anticipate for Newbury. I'm just showing you what could be, okay? Next slide, please. $300 to 500 student community. We shift to experiential curriculum. Experiential curriculum is more or less like place-based education, but place-based is that's a very small term for a very broad curriculum approach. This next one is my favorite.
Is that actual or is that a render?
So this is a rendering of a project that was done in Sweden. So I know that codes and all those things may not be up to American standards or whatever, but again, these are the things that are being done these days. Next slide, please. The inside. Another shot of the inside. Go ahead. Notice lots of light, open space. Next slide, please. Oh, what? Now this is American. And with a small learning community, I mean, again, just you're not building very big when you're focusing on small. You can get away with a lot relatively inexpensively. I mean, like I said, $30 million budget is huge. That's so much money. I mean, I think what Burton's talking about, 90 million, and they're going to pay half of that. I think 40 million. So their learning community is going to be gigantic. It's going to be massive. We would not need that in Newbury. So these are just ideas for you to think about. Moving on. So this is an example that I shared on Facebook. Hawken University, they're embracing what's called a mentorship curriculum, or excuse me, that's not the right slide. Mastery-based learning. One of the ways that they are facilitating that is by focusing on small themselves. So part of that is the mentorship approach. Yes, we can move on to the next slide. And that, again, plays into the mastery-based learning. And so the reason that I'm sharing these things is because I think sometimes people think to themselves when they hear big ideas is, oh, it can't be done, or oh, that's too far away, oh, we can't do that. What I'm saying is right here, you know, on our doorstep, you have one of the most prestigious private schools embracing really what could be an experiment of all on its own, which is the mastery-based learning. But if you look, this is pulled right from their website. In just 1 year, more than 70 colleges and universities, including many of the most selective in the country, you know what they're talking about, Ivy League schools, announced their support of mastery-based learning and transcripts. In addition, more than 230 public and private schools have committed to the Mastery Transcripts Consortium. So public schools are starting to embrace these ideas, and I think Newbury, this is the best time in Newbury's history for us to start looking outside of Newbury, look at how the other leaders are moving forward, and find a way to embrace it. Go ahead.
Real quick, not to put you on the spot, I don't know if you know.
Hey man, that's what tonight's about.
I'm not a plan, I swear. What, do you know how big their high school is?
Well, their
Is
campus
anyone?
is kind of spread out all across Cuyahoga. So,
Like one
Repeat
campus.
the question.
Like,
oh, I'm sorry. JT's asking, does anyone know how big Hawkins campus is?
like number of students in their high school. I don't know. My point being is they're able to put together these national competitive curriculum with very little students. They're not saying we don't have enough students to have an AP course. They don't do that. Why does Newbury community feel like they need to ask that question?
Well,
We
even
don't have enough students to put together a curriculum that our kids need.
even backing that comment up, a lot of college admissions advisors will tell you that they judge a student based on their school. They don't judge them based on what classes they've taken. If the school doesn't offer those kind of classes, the admissions directors are going to judge those students based on what their schools are offering. Not to the.
Enrollment in Hawken is 1,301, and that would be for the 4 separate campuses together. And that goes from preschool to grade 12.
So that's actually pretty small.
Not as small as us, but.
Not as small as us, but for their 4 campuses.
Right, so divide that
only
by
1,000,
4.
yeah, what,
About 400
Their
per
average
campus.
class size is 15 students, and their student ratio is an 8-to-1. Student-teacher ratio.
Now
is
their
an
funding's
8-to-1.
different, I get that.
yeah.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, we're not saying we can model ourselves off after one of the most expensive private schools in Cuyahoga County.
But
But
it's
what we are
possible to
saying
get
is
good
like, let's look, 230 public schools have already started coming into this mindset, right? They're already starting to embrace change. This is one way that we can embrace change. What I'm trying to say is that this isn't pipe dream. This is proven that people are starting to see that there's a new way to approach public education. And that's what I'm excited about for Newbury. Like, can we be pioneers in public education ourselves? I love saying this because it's so cheesy, and I know people roll their eyes when I say it, but seriously, like, this is a tagline for me when I'm talking to, you know, people who are important. Newbury Township is home to the first kindergarten in Ohio. That means something. That really does, and I'll fight for that. I really will. If there's any kind of carve-out that should be made for public education, it should be for the pioneers. Absolutely. I'll fight for that. All right, so these are the new mastery learning facilities for Hawken. There's 4 of them. They're old houses, right? They're tiny. Those are tiny. these tiny little houses are educating the leaders of the future, right? Now, you and I both know that that house is probably like $4 or $5 million house all on its own for street value, but you know, why can't Newbury say, you know what, we are going to embrace small, we're going to take advantage of the learning outcomes that comes from small, and we're going to create our own small learning community, because if places like Hawken are shifting to small, then why can't places like Newbury shift and embrace to small? We've been small, but we've never embraced it. We've always been trying to fight that. We've always been trying to fight small like it's, you know, been some kind of problem for us, which it has been only because our facilities are not right-sized for our learning community. If we right-size the facilities to our learning community, then you get into fixing costs, lowering them, and everybody should know a fixed cost, strong school in your community jacks up your property values. And it also brings in new families. And that's what our township as a whole needs, right? Isn't that the complaint we always hear? Oh, the township's aging, nobody wants to live here, it's the school's fault. Well, okay, let's address the elephant in the room then. And like I was saying earlier, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Mary, go ahead.
I'm just getting practical. These ideas are great, but so what do we have to do to get the referendum? How many signatures do we need for a referendum? One, you say there's 2 years afterwards in order to make it work. Is the referendum binding on the board? Must they approve it? Must they act on it? Or what needs to be done after that? I mean, there's all kinds of practical questions.
Yeah, great question. So first, as the wording is in the ORC, the Ohio Revised Code, it needs to be a majority of the electors that voted in the last general election. So it's not actually defined a definite number.
That's for the petition.
That's for the petition. Yeah, the signatures, collecting the signatures. So I think when I did the math,
It was 16 or 1800.
I thought it was 1,467.4. What's that?
That's petition signatures, or that's to pass the referendum?
Well, that's how many voters are.
That's in order to get it on the ballot at the next election.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
need 1,400 signatures.
1,400 signatures. I'm not gonna lie. I round that up to 1,500, and then I double it. So if I were gonna do it, I want to get 3,000
And
signatures.
there's 1 month to collect those?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So if and again, this is all of my efforts are predicated on the townspeople, right? I don't want to go out there and be like, I'm a man on a mission, and no, I want the township to have their voice and say, yeah, go do it, or like, no, man, go ahead.
So you're aiming for 3,000 signatures. They all have to be registered voters? How many registered voters are in Newbury? Do you have any data on that?
Well, I can
How
tell
many
you.
showed up as a whole? 'Cause I wanna say it's something around less than 50.
Melissa Miller, you always think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I can hear it in your voice. You're like, so you're going for this? Let's see here. There are 4,138 people that voted in the last general election.
How many voters are registered in Newbury? You have
Well, I
that?
have to assume 4,138.
Oh, okay. So everyone showed up to the polls?
That's
Well,
what registered.
that's a question. Yeah, it's,
6,300.
What is it?
There's 6,300, give or take a few registered voters in Newbury. 40 some showed up.
Is that true? I thought our population was only 5,555.
So we have more registered voters.
So we can clarify these. Can somebody take a note, write this down?
Yeah, there is some part of novelty. Part of novelty is in Newbury School.
Oh, gotcha. 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 Jessica, can you write that question down?
So we do have a list of everyone who voted.
Got it.
We have your
Not
name.
not how they voted, but at least that they voted. So with their address, so we can definitely put together a plan to scout the neighborhoods and get these signatures. What houses are important to us and which ones we would just be visiting to have a discussion with.
Yeah, so yeah, the bar is, I wouldn't say it's set low, but you know, you gotta get a majority of those voters. Is that one voter over how many people voted in the last general election? I mean, technically, yes. But are they, you generally have to get more than what's required because they're gonna disqualify voters who may not be registered or are trying to sign it, but they don't live in Newbury or, you know. So the Board of Elections is gonna get it first. Those petitions would get turned into the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections would vet your signatures and then they would give it to the ESC. Then the ESC is required by Ohio Revised Code to follow that out. So if the electors say, yeah, we want this to go to a ballot issue, then it has to be done.
Can you talk a bit about those 2 years on this question? Like, are they binded to 2 years? They can't bring up the issue again, right?
Well, I'm not entirely clear on that. That's been used in some arguments against me that it wouldn't be able to happen again for 2 years. So I see, is it true?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 2 years, so that window would close. They could not attempt to transfer the territory, or is it just transfer the territory, is it consolidating in? It's everything?
Yes.
It's everything, so the window would close for 2 years. That's kind of where I get on my soapbox and I'm like, 2 years? You know we have an open invitation with Burton, right? They said, anytime you want to come, you can come. West G, would they take us again? I don't know, I can't speak for them, but I'm inclined to think probably if we proposed another territory transfer, they would consider taking us again. I feel bad for them because every time they, like this close every time and then something comes up.
So if the referendum goes to ESC, it gets put on the ballot for which election? In May of the following year. And then, depending upon that vote, if the majority of Newbury voters vote, yes, we want an independent school, is the board bound to follow that?
Yeah.
But they're still gonna be on the board, so
They'll
they'll
still
have
be on the
some
board.
input into what the.
But you know what, honestly, like, I respect Kimya and Maggie. I think that if the whole township came together and said, you know what, we want to look into this modernizing our district, I think Kimya and Maggie would be like, you know what, okay, you know, it's 2 years, okay. I know people are shaking their heads, but I'm an optimistic guy, you know.
But it'd be hard to argue that the township does not support the independent school if it did happen.
Yeah, I mean,
It'd be almost impossible to say that.
what are they gonna do? Just sit there and be a stalwart for 2 years and I think it would do more damage to their reputation to sit there and stalwart 2 years after the referendum happens than to just be like, let's see if we can turn this into apple pie. That's how I think of it. Next slide, please. So what are the opportunities we already have? Harvard University. There's been a lot of talk about this. Well, I shouldn't say we already have it. I came across this opportunity with Harvard University. They are partnering with the state of Ohio to create, let me see here, let me start over. So we may not get it, but this is an opportunity that was available to us because of our designation. So basically Harvard came to the state of Ohio and they said, you know what, we're gonna give you $10 million. We're gonna create a network of rural schools that will work together to create and test solutions to the challenges of chronic absenteeism, college readiness, and college enrollment in rural education, right? So I sent this to Dr. Hoynes and I was like, for the love of God, seriously, you've got to apply to this. And so far she's gone to a meeting on it and she told me that she does intend to apply for it. It would be such a good opportunity for us just to lift us up a little bit, first and foremost, but also it's gonna help with our outcomes. I mean, Dr. Hoynes told me we do have a problem at Newbury with chronic absenteeism. So, you know, her opinion was, is it something we can handle in-house? Probably, but why would you not? If this opportunity exists, why would you not? So I think that's awesome. And again, this is because Newbury is small and rural. If we were a bigger campus or learning community, we wouldn't have been able to take advantage of this. You know, Burton wasn't eligible, West G wasn't eligible, Chardon wasn't eligible, Kenston wasn't eligible, just Newbury, I think. I don't know about Middlefield, but I do know Newbury was eligible. So again, it kind of verifies embracing the small niche. There's power in small. So let's keep going. Okay, so return on investment. That's really what I want to help create. You know, if Newbury were to remain independent, again, that's what it's all predicated on. It's up to the community. I can't say that enough. It's up to the community to want to move forward. If the community wanted to move forward, though, what I would want to do is create a better return on investment, right? The community said, yeah, we'll pay $8.8 million for the current school district. Community said they would do that by voting and passing on those levies. What I'm saying is, maybe we do that again, maybe not, I don't know. But if we did, I think we could create a greater return on your investment this time. Right now is the best time to explore that option. If we can right-size the facilities, the cost of operating is going to go down. If we can bring in a new curriculum to the school, we may create a lot of attraction to Newbury. There's a lot of parents, like my wife and I, who want their kids to have an organic learning experience like what Newbury currently offers. Me personally, I think Newbury school building is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I would love to demolish it and build something modern, but that's just me. And I think that's part of the black cloud that hangs out there. People think it's old, outdated, ugly, blah, 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 blah. But we know what happens inside is what nobody really knows about, except for the parents. And all the parents say, yeah, I'm kind of happy with Newbury. I like what my kids experience there, and I like what they have to offer.
Yeah, and I'd like to address the state report card.
Microphone.
So that, one of the other arguments is that the state report card, West G is practically ACE's thing. Newbury, our state report card's not very good. That's a common argument. How can we pass up going to West G? If you read the first cover, if you read the cover page on the state report cards, they put it in there every year. It's like you cannot get an accurate assessment from a school with the state report card. Please visit your local district to find out the wonderful things Ohio schools are doing. So, for one thing, the state report card is a statistical measure. Newbury doesn't have the students. It's not credible because we don't have the students to measure it. That doesn't mean that Newbury shouldn't be here because they can't measure us, right? It just means that whatever they're trying to measure can't be accurately depicted in the grades that they get. And if you talk to anybody, teachers, administration, nobody likes that state report card. They know there's flaws. They know it, and then they start ranking the schools, and you know, the bad schools start getting that bad rep, so people leave it because some parents don't do their education when it comes to where they're going to send their kids. And I'd like to kind of address that with my personal experience with, so I'm new to Newbury. We moved here 3 to 4 years ago. Our daughter was going into kindergarten when we got here. We looked, and we had the means to go private, and we looked at open enrollment, and we got into open enrollment at that time. And my wife took herself and my sister-in-law, who's a teacher in Youngstown, a small town in Youngstown. And they observed each kindergarten class. And when they were done with that surveying, my wife's like, we're sending our kids to Newbury. It was the personal touch. It was our teacher, our family teacher saying, what they're doing in that classroom is amazing. send them there. There's no reason not to. So that's just my personal experience. So anyone who tells you that Newbury's not already doing great things, like I think what David's saying up here is awesome. Like we should not feel like we're good enough. You should never feel like you're good enough, right? We need to take the steps to go on to that next level and to make people realize the special things that happen in small schools. So yeah, I mean, I'll get off my soapbox again, but thanks for letting me share that.
And JT has he has a really authentic experience. I mean, his kids were in the school system. My kids aren't in it yet. I'm also a transplant. My parents moved me out here from Lakewood in '94 or something. I think when I started 7th grade. And dude, honestly, like I always thought Newbury was back where it's like, you know, the public education I received. I walked everywhere. I mean, I was exposed to everything, and coming out to Newbury has just been, you know, it is what it is. It's rural, but at the same time, being, you know, a little bit of my entrepreneurial spirit, I'm like, well, okay, so if we're going to be rural, why don't we actually strategically embrace it? And if we're going to be a green township, if we're going to, you know, foster green space and preserve that, which I'm totally okay with, that's what I love about Newbury, why aren't we doing it more in a more modern approach? Like, why do we not have any electric car charging stations anywhere in Newbury? But yet we're like super green. That doesn't make sense to me. In a school that I would build, that would be there. People would be coming to Newbury to charge their electric cars, for sure. That's gonna happen. You know, trying to stay with the trends but ahead of them to know enough of what's frivolous and what has lasting power. I mean, we all can agree that electric cars are here to stay. I mean, Tesla's proven that, and now everybody else is trying to keep up. So we need to be the community that's like, yeah, if you're gonna do that in Newbury, come charge your cars here. And then guess what? If you're coming to Newbury to charge your cars, you're gonna start thinking like, oh, well, maybe I should send my kids to Newbury. And if we have a curriculum that really is pioneering, you know, then we're really gonna have something to offer people. It isn't gonna be gimmicks. So I think a modernized district is gonna create greater student outcomes. It's gonna have greater appeal. It's gonna create a stronger community. It would increase our property values. It would fix the costs to the community. It would maintain greater access to local government. It would strengthen public school choice. I mean, think about that. Eliminate, right now we have 4 schools on 87, right? West G, Newbury, Burton, Cardinal. They're talking about taking 2 of those away. You know, Cardinal's been fighting off their consolidation for a couple years now, but you have 2 less public school choices. So, you know, in that absence, the opportunity for voucher schools rises, which is fine, but you have to understand what a charter school is. That's privatization of public education, and that money's gonna go to private businesses, and that's your money. You want to keep that local. You want representation for your taxation. You want that. And that's what a public school, that's what an independent public school does in our township. So yeah. Next slide, please. So you got to get involved. If you haven't already, provide your email address before you go. Make sure you register to vote. Think about your place in the community. Think about your ownership of public resources, which you know, our school is. It's a public resource, and we own it. You know, I don't want to focus on West Geauga or Burton or anything like that, but I will say this. You know, if our territory is transferred, right? We're going to be 5,000 people. Chesterland's about 10,000 plus or minus. No, not minus. It's 10,000 plus. You know, you're never going to have a majority say on that board. It's going to be very, yeah, you're not going to have a majority say on that board ever. And that's a little scary. That is a little scary because what Chesterland seems fit for their community might not be what Newbury seems fit for our community. And so, you know, you know, my point of view is we need to preserve local control, because 100% representation of taxation is always the best for us as people and as a community. So, I promised I wouldn't say this, but I just want to get a reaction out of everybody. I would probably close open enrollment too, in those 2 years. I would probably close open enrollment. I wouldn't want anybody coming into us restructuring, but at the same time, I think I'd like to try and attract people into the community by saying, no, you gotta live in here. One other thing that I'd like to explore would be an income tax, maybe. I think it's something that Newbury's never considered. Maybe we've considered it, but I've never heard the discussions for it. What an income tax would do is address the concern of the aging population. So right now, the elders in the community are all saying, hey, you know, we've got a fixed income, we've got these really big properties, and we can't afford the taxes on these properties because of our fixed income. So what you could do is you could introduce an income tax that's just on earned income, you know. So you can exclude the population that's on a fixed income, and you can bring in the people who are not property owners. So the people that are renting in Newbury would contribute to the tax base, and then you can diminish the tax burden on property values while at the same time excluding those who are on fixed income. So that could be something we could discuss too. Nothing's set in stone, it's just you've got to explore all these things. And again, those 2 years are all about exploring these things, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. Go ahead.
You said you were
Yep.
privy to the idea of closing open enrollment.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any fear that
Nope. Nope.
that the district becoming homogenous would sort of
No, not at all. I want to build you.
the 90%
I
white
want to
student
build you.
population and other, minorities not wanting to move here,
Well,
are being unable to enroll their children here and maybe being turned off by the lack of heterogeneous population?
let me unpack that one. Just lay it out and lay it straight for me.
I believe it's somewhere teetering around 90% of Newbury students are of the Caucasian race, and opening up open enrollment to neighboring districts will make the student population a little bit more diverse. Because, Newbury as a township is homogeneous and generally white, and, if you tend to go elsewhere, you get a little bit more diversity. So we are turning off the diversity availability by just leaving it to the population generalizable to Newbury. I feel like
I mean, that's one way you can look at it, sure.
me as a parent, I like I like my kids to be among diversity. And that's kind of one of the reasons why initially I was a little skeptical about whether or not to send my daughters to Newbury in the first place. I just feel like there is a little bit more enrichment and more diverse population. And I think that closing open enrollment.
Yeah, but that's representative of Newbury. I mean, unfortunately, Newbury is
We have
mostly
that in
Caucasian.
schools.
So,
We have Hispanics, we have blacks, we have
Less than 10%.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
There's other diversity besides
That,
race.
I don't agree on that.
Yeah, so yeah, hold on, wait, we're gonna have some rules here, we're not gonna have crosstalk and all that stuff, no, it's all good. Let me just address Melissa real quick. So, I'm gonna be honest and blunt with you, because I love you, Melissa, I really do.
I think, seriously.
I know you do. It's alright, laugh it out. We got to, that's why we're having this meeting, right, we're putting
We're in
faces.
Club 87, like 10 years ago.
I know, and now all my hair is gone, I'm up here doing old man stuff. We're gonna keep this school. I used to have great hair, everybody, by the way. Greg knows what I'm talking about, yeah. No, that honestly, that's like, that's probably the most cynical way you could put it, honestly, listen. Like, that's not my intentions. First of all, what I would say is Newbury is rural. You don't find a lot of African Americans saying, you know where I wanna live? Newbury. You don't. I would invite them here. This is a great place to live. This is a great place to raise a family. This is a great place to meet people. This is a great place to live. It truly is. I would just pose the idea of closing open enrollment because I think Newbury needs to focus on itself, and I think Newbury needs to create something about itself that has appeal. And the minute that you restrict resources, then people become interested. That's just how it goes. So during those 2 years of restructuring, if the referendum were successful, I would say maybe not those 2 years, maybe it would be afterwards. But I think it's something worth exploring. The same thing with an income tax. I'm not saying let's go in there right now and put an income tax out there. I'm just saying, have we ever explored this? Can we see what the numbers would be? Would it benefit the community? Would it lower some of the fears that the people have about staying independent? Go ahead. We're going to turn this into the Q&A portion now because I'm done. So.
Well, instead of saying no open enrollment, maybe just say, okay, we're only gonna open enroll to have 500 kids.
Well, that's just it. I mean.
Number two is income tax. Townships, are they allowed to have income tax?
Yeah, the school district has 3 funding sources available to it. It has inside millage, outside millage, and income tax.
Is Newbury allowed to be a township? To have income
Yeah,
tax?
yeah, we're a school district, so we're actually, that's the cool thing about the school district is we are our own government. You know, we elect our own representatives, we operate our own territory, and a school district has taxation and eminent domain powers. And that's what's really cool about a school district, but that's also what's kind of dangerous about a school district if you don't have control of it. Go ahead.
What kind of support is there among the current township trustees? And I don't know what's been done in terms of tax abatement in the past with industries and businesses. That's money the school districts could use. How supportive are the current trustees towards keeping an independent school, and do we need them?
So without sounding disrespectful, I don't think we need them. And support. As for your question about support, I mean, I'm thankful a trustee showed up tonight. Trustee Trope is here. I didn't invite him. I just the rest. He heard about it on Facebook and wanted to come out and see what it was all about. The most important thing to me right now, and I've said this to several people, we need to kind of see this time in Newbury's history as really there's like a true torch passing going on right now. I mean, we see a lot of the elders that have been in leadership positions for a very long time. Look at the new leaders that have come in. Maggie, Kemya, right? They're all in their 30s. The rec board, she's in her 30s. Lauren, she's here. Hi, Lauren. You've got people like me who, I'm in my mid-30s. I'll be 36 this year, and now I'm starting to feel that, I don't know, sense of like, hey, should I be doing something to help shape the future for my kids? And that's really what it is. I mean, we're not doing these things for ourselves, and if we are, we're assholes. I'm just saying it. We need to be doing these things. My vision is always 50 years out, right? In 50 years, what am I doing today? What is that going to do in 50 years? Go ahead. Did you just say asshole? I can't believe.
No, you said you're envisioning 50 years out, and that's why I wanted to bring up the House bill that, was it 276,
264.
264, sorry. I had actually come across that at some point before, and it is not an infinite promise. It is a one-time limited opportunity. Once the district uses that for efficiencies, you are not able to use it ever again. It was introduced, I think, in the 80s. Do you know if we have used that before for any services at the district?
I think one of the board members had told me that former Superintendent Kalish was trying to do something with it. I don't know if she actually did anything with it. But that's the other thing, like something that's really peculiar, like, right, this this is what kind of drives me crazy, because I have one of those kind of minds where, like, if people make claims, I go and research it, right? Just because that's our responsibility. Like, if somebody tells you something in a subject that you're interested in, you can't just take my word for it. I mean, look at Bob. You've been taking notes all night long, brother. I love it. You gotta research what people are telling you, right? So I did that. Somebody made a claim that, you know, the OFC came out a couple of years ago and made a report that it was gonna cost us $20 million to build a new school, right? So I called the OFC and I was just like, hey, you know, this is me and this is what I'm doing, and just had the conversation. He's like, yeah, I don't see anything that we've been out there. I'm like, well, that can't be right, because this person is a pretty credible source for the most part. And he was like, yeah, no, I mean, records that we have was back in 2004, you guys became eligible for participation with the OFC, but the superintendent and the board actually backed out of it. And I was like, wait, what? So my point in bringing that up is that I was extremely surprised that, the claim was made that the OFC just came out and did this report that it was going to cost us to build this, but then also that back then we became eligible for that money and pulled out of it. So I don't know what Michelle was doing. I never got a chance to ask her. All I do know is that a current board member told me that they thought Michelle was trying to do something with it.
But beyond Michelle, if it happened even before her, it would, your basis was for these new, more efficient facilities was off of this House bill. And you said you were trying to make decisions that will, be in favor of students, 50 years from now.
Yep.
Science is innovative, always changing, there's always something better and new. In 50 years, if there was an even greener, more efficient facility, we would not have that available to us.
Well, that's if we stick with. Yeah.
Another bill since
That's the claim we've had.
Right. Let me. Okay, no crosstalk. No crosstalk. Making me be old tonight. No, she brings up a really good point. I mean, this is what it's all about. This is how the community shapes its future. So, to address her question, House Bill 264. I don't know if it's been used yet. If I were in the position to ask the question, I would ask the question: have we used this bill? That's also a public information request that I can do tomorrow to the current superintendent. It might take her a minute to find out that information because everybody there is new, but she'll probably be able to figure it out. She's a great woman. I don't know if you ever talked to her before or not, but she's a fantastic leader. I respect her. So we just need to ask the question: has this been used? And my only point was that's if we choose to stay with the current building that we have. House Bill 264. House Bill 264 is just a way for us to improve the current building that we have. But like I said, I think Burton passed a 30-year bond to build their new facility. So if Newbury can use those same circumstances, 30 years, $1 million a year, we could build a $30 million facility, which we would never need. It's way too much money. Go ahead.
I really love the idea of a community center.
Yes.
Apart from the school. And I don't know what's currently going to happen with the library station if there is a transfer. Does it disappear? Has there been any contact with the Jaga system to see if they'd be interested in opening a branch instead of the library station?
I don't know.
The Y would be, the Chardon Y is used. There's room for one in this part of Jaga County.
Sure. Or what other providers want to get into this territory? I mean, hey, big business, come on in. You want to compete? We got space. That's just how I look at it a little bit. But to address the library comment, does anybody know if it's true or not that they don't pay any rent? Is that true? I heard a rumor that they got that space and they don't pay any rent for it, or no, it's not true. It's a lie.
They don't pay. It's their agreement.
Their agreement with who? The former school board?
Whenever the school board.
Every year.
Whenever school board, or is it every year?
Every year they send.
Why? Why don't they pay rent?
They also use our library records.
They
Do they? I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying, why don't they pay rent?
They also teach library classes.
I think they know.
Yeah, they read.
So So they're like our librarian now? Yeah. I mean, that's the trade-off. That would be awesome if they said, yeah, we'll be your librarian, if, you know, and we said, yeah, you guys come in, take the space, pay us for it, that's awesome, be our librarian, you know, that's shared services, that's how that's supposed to work. Go ahead. No, it's all right.
You, at some point when you were talking about the Harvard grants,
Partnership.
I haven't seen partnership or collaboration in either of those two words in any of the literature. If you have any literature using that specific, language, I would love to see it.
It's on the State Board of Education's website, you can probably find it there.
And the reason that I feel, you said, why wouldn't anyone wanna, partake in this? The reason that I would be skeptical as a parent is that, the grant establishes a new center for rural education research networks at Harvard. So far, like I said, the literature I have said, it doesn't say anything about, an investment into material or, capital, assets, in the curriculum or within the district, or human, resources. And so my concern with that is, it also says that it, is trying to use, the 60 school districts, and that $10 million, it doesn't say how it's allocated among the 60 school districts, not just in Ohio, but in New York as well, on, educational models that are being studied. So my concern would be, okay,
My concern is that information is bizarre. Did you pull that up from the state's website?
This is from the Harvard, I pulled up from, harvard.edu,
Oh.
who is funding the research center that.
Pull it up on Ohio EDU, who has accepted the funding and is making that opportunity available to us.
Aren't you just concerned that there are students would be used as sort of, I don't wanna use the, word guinea pig, but they will be students under educational models that have not yet proved efficacy because they're being studied, it's a randomized controlled trial.
I think that's a tad presumptuous up front, without any North Stars to, what this program is. So, if you go to the Ohio Education's website, take a look at the information they've provided, which I'm using.
Which I think is where I found it. The Ohio Education website has the link to the Harvard EDU.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actual announcement. There's an announcement. If you look up, just look up.
This is where I'm going to the source of where the money is coming from, and it's not coming from Ohio. It is coming from the center that the National Center for Rural Education Research, which provides the $10 million among 60 schools in Ohio and New York, and they specifically stated on Harvard EDU that
Ohio.gov right here.
Every day in a classroom, we experiment.
It takes a while to implement. We had a literacy collaborative that took, is that it's not studied yet. These are models of education that they want to study.
I think they're studying the rural schools. Well, one, I think they're doing it. So the overall picture here, and this is why I always get my chops busted about, unless Bill Gates gives us $30 million or whatever, because Bill and Melinda Gates started pouring in billions of dollars into small schools, right? Like if you look back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'll find all these articles where Bill and Melinda Gates, and if you go to if you go to the Gates Foundation website, you'll find a whole section on there on public education and small schools, right? So the Gates Foundation started pouring in billions of dollars into small schools. They went into New York and they were like, you know what, you've got these schools where you've got, 5,000 kids per school. Let's break that down into small learning communities. Let's chop it up, right? So my guesstimation on it really would be that Harvard is probably, number one, trying to see if rural schools provide any value still, or should we eradicate them all? Probably not. I think they also know that rural schools are an absolute hotbed for the type of learning communities that we present, which are small inherently. You know, consolidation isn't a new thing. That's been happening for a very long time. And it's really been happening within school districts. Like when I say I went to Lakewood, okay, there were like, I want to say 5 elementary schools. There was 1 high school. There were 3 junior highs. And in those types of districts, that's really where a lot of the consolidation started happening, within one district. It happened in Newbury. Newbury used to have 2 schools, right? And then they got rid of the old one and consolidated it. No?
9.
Newbury had 9?
Newbury had 9 individual schools.
For real?
Yep.
Holy moly.
Township website.
I had no idea. That's way more than I even thought.
Students also have the freedom to ride the interurban to any school in the county and go there.
That would've been fun.
They all had Chester, the same thing.
Yeah,
They all had small.
So that's the
like
point.
8 kids in the
I mean,
class.
you're just saying, I think, and verbatim it says, they will organize studies to test the efficacy of proposed solutions, and beneficially stating, some of which will be suggested by participating schools. My only concern is.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for Newbury.
if it
Newbury
works,
gets to
and
have
if
a
it
voice
doesn't
in that
work,
network.
If their proposed solutions aren't.
Well, I mean, Melissa, think about what you're saying. You're like, yeah, okay, the vaccine for AIDS could work, but that means we're gonna have to test it. And
I mean, I'm not on my kid, that's all I'm saying.
No
I got my
vaccines?
kid's education, nope, we're not testing on my kid, I want proof.
Okay,
Solutions.
so you have those proof solutions from,
We had a
well, I won't even go there.
literacy grant that
I won't
we
go there.
implemented
Next.
that was pretty-
That's awesome.
that took 5 years.
Let's go all the way into the back there.
David, I love your vision, and it's so refreshing to hear somebody with some positive ideas for Newbury. But I think what we need
Oh, wait, there's more.
to do, what we need to do is I think we need to focus on the referendum.
I'm not sure who you are. I'm sorry.
My name is Kelly Lund. I work at the school. I'm
Okay.
also a 35-year resident in Newbury.
Gotcha.
My kids graduated. I think we need to focus as a group on getting the referendum on the ballot and how we're gonna do that so that we can look at your vision, which I think is awesome. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I overlook the referendum because in my mind, it's just as simple as, okay, you hold meetings until the referendum, you start getting out there and introducing yourself to the people, talking to them about these conversations door to door. I mean, that's why the emails are so important. I'm not gonna be able to go to every house. I'm not gonna be able to talk to everybody. We're gonna have to organize in a way that focuses just on the referendum. This is what's needed, but I think the reason that I focus more on the what after is for 2 reasons. One, I would never, ever want to maliciously carry out the referendum. I would never want to carry out the referendum in such a way that is, ha, we trumped your move. That's not me. I want what's best for my kids and what the community wants. In order to create the buy-in for the community, what's important to me is that we have a vision of a modernized district. Is it the Harvard Partnership? I don't know. Am I gonna look at the Harvard Partnership and be like, yeah, I don't know about the efficacy? No, not at all. I'm gonna say that's opportunity for a small rural school and I wanna investigate it. It's, we investigate it. We can pull out of it at any time. If we get into it and you're like, dude, what are they doing in here? And we're like, well, you know what? You're a constituent. Look at the power of the constituency that has happened in the last year. It's been unbelievable. So that's your what's the phrase? Your fail stop. If something goes south in a partnership like that, then you say, we don't want to be involved in this anymore. So.
Well, I think that what you're saying is correct, but I think, so at least we will have, if I wanna go out and I wanna collect signatures from my neighbors and my friends that live in Newbury and say, if you sign this petition And
Yeah,
I
or we
think
could just
that's
stop it
what-
right there and so we have the right to vote.
That, right.
You know,
But at least
you don't need my
have
vision
something.
to pass the referendum. I'm just super awesome and trying, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just trying, I would get involved. This is exciting to me. This is like, the parallels between public health and public education are very similar. So my background is in long-term care administration, my background's in healthcare administration, but the parallels are very similar. And when I see the opportunity to get involved on this level, I do get excited about it, and I approach it like I approach everything. Like, how can you make this awesome? How can you create the best return on investment? How can you be a leader? And, you know, that's where a lot of these ideas come into play. Go ahead.
I think I agree with her. I think what I wanna know is, we'll have a list of the 4,000 some people who actually voted in the last election because we need a majority of them,
Yes.
not a majority of all of the voters. Will they be ready on day one in August to go, the petitions? Where do they come from? Do we create them? Is the language, you have to investigate what language is actually effective or legal. What's being done?
Well, right now, me personally, I'm trying to decide whether or not the community wants this to happen, right? If I have 5 people that are saying like, yeah, let's do this, that's enough to get me going. And then I hear people like you talk, and I'm like, ooh, that's a good point, right? That's why I'm having a public meeting, because I don't know everything, right? My focus has been on what would the school district look like after the referendum. What I've learned from the Board of Elections, whom I've talked to, is, boom, yeah, this is how you get all the addresses of all the precincts. Look, you can even arrange it in walking order. So I have all that information. My understanding is an attorney is gonna have to draft the petition, and it's gonna have to be worded in a way that is strong, so that it's more or less fail-safe.
Do we have an attorney? Do we have a pro bono attorney, or do we all chip in and hire an attorney?
So, yeah, so that's another reason why Citizens for an Independent Newbury exists, so that we can coordinate, you know, the obtaining of monies and peoples to do that. If somebody wants to go out and do that independently, by all means, you know, do that, but I think everybody knows when you come together collectively, you get more done. So make sure you provide your email address, because every single day I learn more information, or I meet with new people, or I find out things. And there's a group of us that are doing this all independently. We bring it together and try and move forward. Go ahead.
So I think this is a great idea. You know, the whole argument with the people opposing the school are no one's coming up with solutions on how to make Newbury attractive to people to send their children here, especially people living in Newbury that are, you know, sending their kids to other schools. My concern is if we do this and we go out and get the referendum and we get our signatures and everything, great. But if we don't get the board on board, then we can't do anything with it. Like, if we have this idea to make Newbury this really attractive school, but if the board members don't do it, I mean, they're the ones who ultimately decide what direction we're gonna go. If they just decide, like you said, to stalemate and stay where they're at, then this is just prolonging it for 2 years. You know, we'll be in a fiscal emergency by the end of 2 years. And I mean, that's my concern. So I think if we present this to people, like, I'm sure there's a lot of people who voted, yeah, let's just go with West G, it's a better school district. But they were maybe on the fence. You know, maybe the one argument wasn't as attractive as the other argument, so they went with the consolidation thing, or the transfer, or whatever. If we have a plan to say, you know, we have a vision for Newbury, we think that Newbury can achieve this. It's almost like, to me, I'm comparing it to like Auburn Career Center in my brain. You know, like it's helping kids focus in on becoming, you know, like thinking about their future, and not everyone's gonna go to college, and not everyone's gonna, you know, like Berkshire's doing. They have the nursing program there that, you know, when the kids get out of that, they're gonna have an associate's degree in nursing or a bachelor's. You know, that kind of idea. So I think if we have an idea or a plan when we go to people, you know, like the people that are on the fence that may have voted to consolidate, they might say, you know what, maybe you're right. maybe with changing things and getting, but my other concern is if we talk those people into it and everybody signs, then the board's gonna go, no, we're not doing anything. So then we're just back to square one. So it's ultimately, I mean, how do we
Yeah.
get the board on board?
No, that's a great point. Again, I have respect for, I don't know Terry or any of the other board members, but I know probably the Begary's the best, and I know of Maggie a little bit. I went to school with her. I know her well enough, and I respect them. And I would just have to say, I think that if the community spoke, what if Kimya and Maggie don't know what to do as a second option? What if they went into the board with, trying to word this so strategically. What if they went into their positions as board members thinking that there was only one solution, right? And somebody came along and said, well, what about this, right? And the community said, oh yeah, what about that? And then the community voted for the referendum, supported it through signature, and it went to the ballot, and Township voted. They were like, yep, let's do a modernized school district, let's focus on small, let's right size the facilities, let's turn this district into the 21st century. Let's do that. I just can't help but believe that Kimya and Maggie and maybe Terry, I don't know, but I guess technically you'd only need one of them really to be like, you know what, I want to see this for my kids too. I want to be a part of modernizing this district. But who doesn't want to be a part of that? Who wouldn't want to be a part of doing something like that if that's what the township wanted? So part of me is like, I don't think there is, I don't think they're entirely like would do something like that. But on the other hand, if they did do something like that, I mean, that's their legacy. If they made that choice and be like, no, yeah, then that, they're forever gonna be, that's them. That's what you chose. You had the option. You had, and you chose not to take it, so that's your legacy. I would want that to be my legacy. I'd want to look at, somebody presented me an opportunity or said, hey, try that avenue, and, I would want to, if it improved me or if it, made what I was doing better, I would want to explore that.
I would think another thing we would need would be a fact sheet with talking points, with actual facts and citations.
Is anybody taking this man's notes now?
I agree. I mean, the analysis I've done agrees with JT that it's actually going to cost Newbury residents more in taxes to have the transfer. It's not going to save us anything. And that money is going to go to West G. It's not going to go to it'll go to our students indirectly. I mean,
Well, the thing I don't understand about that is that what I've been told countless times is that our enrollment is diminishing. So really what doesn't make sense to me is that if our enrollment is diminishing and it has been diminishing and the plan is that it's gonna keep diminishing, then how does that benefit the people of Newbury to send all of our property taxes to West Geauga? Where's the break-even point where we're sending all of our property taxes there but we have no students going there? Or we have a handful of students going there? Why don't we modernize our district by saying, well, we're gonna focus on keeping it at 300 to 500 at all times in Newbury? I mean, yeah, there's nothing you could do if we get a huge boom and people start moving into Newbury and then our kids start moving in. But again, design these days. I mean, architects can design in such a way that they're not adding space onto a main facility. They can add space off of the main facility, so when you don't need that space anymore, it can be converted or easily demolished or whatever. I mean, me personally, right now with that old building, I would rip the whole back half of that building off up to the gym, scale it down. That's such a layman understanding of architecture. I would bulldoze everything. Give me a bulldozer. Yeah, but you make some great points. So we need to get some resources out there to everybody who's provided email addresses. Actually, somebody raised their hand.
Yeah, I will. I just wanted to say also, I think the biggest thing with, at least what I've read and seen with Newbury residents, it really comes down to dollars. So I think,
Yeah.
you know, as a group, and you're getting ready to do this, you know, I had asked a question about West Geauga wanting to build new schools, and if anybody had any numbers on that, if we were to do this territory transfer, what is that gonna cost the residents of Newbury? And nobody seems to have those answers.
Oh, that's such a good comment, and I gotta tell you, like, so again, like, full disclosure, my kid goes to Lindsay Elementary. You know, my son was born with a really rare genetic syndrome. Takes advantage of classes at Lindsay Elementary, so we have no complaints about them. West Geauga, you can't say one bad thing about West G. It's a tremendous school. But when I hear about Burton getting a new facility and they're doing all this great stuff, and then you hear about West Geauga and they're talking about building a new facility, getting all this great stuff, and then people come to Newbury and they're like, well, Newbury's a dump and there's nothing good about it. There's just might as well just throw it away. We have a niche we can fill. We could be when I look at it like Chardon, Burton, Kenston, West Geauga, and right in the middle of that, Newbury. Tiny little Newbury. I see it as this little, you know, just this little island of like, you know, bring me your week, and you know, like here we are this small little niche, we are the small school surrounded by these big schools. Go ahead.
How are you bringing the week when you're going ahead and closing open enrollment? On top of it, if you look at it, Newbury's lost most of its students that are above the poverty line to open enrollment. We have over 50% of our students are on assistance.
Is that a bad thing?
No, basically anyone who could leave has basically opened enrollment elsewhere and taken our tax dollars with them.
Yeah, so I want to bring our people back first and foremost.
They've already chosen to leave. How are you going to do it?
Well, I mean, you got to admit that a lot of people chose to leave because everything that's going on right now. I mean, you know, there was an announcement that was like, you better open enroll now because the date is X,
There
Y,
were a
and Z.
lot of students open enrolled before that.
Yeah, I mean,
We
people
first
are.
started having these arguments before Kimia and the rest were elected. We were already seeing how that just like 55% of the eligible students that live in Newbury are actually using the school.
All the school systems are losing. West Geauga's
Where
losing
are they
too.
going?
That's why they have open enrollment.
Well, you know,
Didn't you get it?
a lot of
That's
them.
what's
I
happening.
get it. But
All
you have
okay,
to
wait.
of the eligible students
Yeah.
actually
All the
attending the
schools,
school.
you look around everywhere, Crestwood has a problem. The other one that, West G has a problem. Every school system, because the governor took the money away. That's the problem.
Well, not only
But the
that-
school systems won't band together and raise Kane down there at the Columbus to get the money back.
We also have, we are the 6th wealthiest township in the county by property value, right? Oh, can we bring that back up? Don't want to be looking at parents. Oh, John? Okay. 6th wealthiest by property value in the township, and we have some wealthy people that live in Newbury, and I think a lot of their kids are going to the private schools. I mean, that's one of the arguments that I've heard a lot, is that a lot of the kids are going to private schools. There's vouchers now where kids can go to private schools. I didn't know about that. But I think a lot of it has just been the perception of the school, the marketing of the school. Like if you think about marketing, from a marketing standpoint, how's the marketing been for Newbury? Is Newbury a world-class learning community? I'm asking. Is that?
Do you think that it is?
Could be.
Could be.
I'm just saying, like, if I was like, oh, the marketing slogan for Newbury, world-class learning community, would you be like, oh yeah, that's, or would you be like, what are you smoking?
For right now?
For right now, sure.
Yeah, I would say, okay, Dave.
Right, right. So I think that's part of the problem, right? I don't know why I just did a George W. there, but I did. It's all right, Bob, you can laugh.
But you're talking about a marketing slogan without anything behind it.
Well, no, there is something, there is something behind it. There absolutely is something behind it. What, I'm telling you, the school district that can be created in Newbury is something that's never been embraced by this school district before. We've been fighting the decline rather than saying, let's meet the decline, right?
Yeah, we haven't
When you
been
have
fighting the decline, we've been upstaffing instead of downsizing.
Well, that wasn't me.
No,
I
but I'm
didn't do
saying
that.
that's the reality of the
Maybe I have that
situation
same
we're
problem,
looking
you
at.
know, maybe
That's
I.
the same, that's the reality. It's not that you're for it, I'm against it. That's the reality, and that's where we have to move from. We can't move from back here when mistakes were made. We can't move from the future. We can only move from right here.
That's where I'm saying, like, that's what I love about the current school board and the current superintendent, is that honestly, through their preparations for the territory transfer, they have taken this district down to the studs. That's phenomenal opportunity for us, phenomenal. Because we can either say, okay, it's down to the studs, now bring in the bulldozers, or we could say, okay, it's down to the studs, now let's start rebuilding. And that referendum time, those 2 years, that's gonna be the rebuilding time. That's where we say, okay, let's start adding back on, let's explore these programs, let's just have the conversation about these things. Doesn't mean we have to go into it, yes ma'am?
Okay, so I love this conversation about the future.
Wrap it up.
No, not even that. What's the next step to get to this referendum? We can have all these other conversations in that 2-year political period, but right now we gotta know what we're doing. Are we forming groups? Are we having another meeting? What's
We're gonna
the
have more
next
meetings,
step?
right? We're gonna have
And
more
how do we
meetings.
get this?
Are you guys
Spread
ready
that
for
survey.
November? I think that's a question that
You should.
everyone has.
Honestly, you should.
Do you
What's
have
that?
potential candidates in
In
November
Yeah.
who will be proponents of your?
Honestly, another thing, Dave, everybody you have going out and getting signatures, you should also have them be deputy registrars, so if people aren't registered to vote, you can register them on the spot, now their signature's good.
Are you just gonna help me already? I don't know this stuff. How do you know all this stuff?
Because I've run for office before.
Okay, well, you're gonna help me, right? You know all this stuff. I'm not joking. I don't know this stuff.
I have no problem with people having a chance to vote, okay? If you can get it done, you need 150 signatures a day in those 3 days. And that's the bare minimum. I'm not talking your numbers. Your numbers, you need 300 a day.
When you say it like that, I'm like, how many people live in Newbury? Don't we just have 300 people? Is that one day?
So I urge people to
That's
take that
crazy.
survey.
I mean, that's reality, Bob. Thank you.
Because what we're doing with that survey is there's a question on there whether we want to volunteer.
Yeah.
That helps consolidate. We know who's going to be stomping the ground, right? We already have a unit that says I'm going to stomp the ground for you. At that point, David and I need to decide you're going to stomp this ground, you're going to stomp that ground. That way we're not tromping on each other, right? We're not doubling up the same signature, right? So it's going to be a lot of organization, and I believe that Citizens for Independent Newbury can be that central organizer to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts.
Yeah.
So take that
that's
survey,
really cool.
that's gonna do a couple things. It's gonna tell us first who the easy signatures are. It's gonna tell us who's willing to put in the effort to go that extra mile to get that 100 signatures that you have to get being one of the volunteers.
And honestly, if you have knowledge base, Bob, I'm not joking. If you have a knowledge base like that, if you can, I don't want to say help, because I know that everybody's kind of like has a line drawn, their own personal standards, their own personal values, their own personal take on the
It's up to
situation.
the township what they want to do.
Absolutely.
And-
You and I agree 100% on that.
And I'll at least tell you what kind of things I've seen that you need to have in a campaign. And yeah, the first idea of not stomping on each other. What you're gonna have to do is have organized teams that go out on Saturday and Sunday is gonna be your best chance. If you can
Team
get people to
leader.
go during the
Bob Robertson, team leader.
All right.
You just nominated yourself. Everybody give Bob a round of applause. There we go.
Guys know I'm on the other side, right?
Is there a side to liberty though? Is there a side to liberty?
I'm a libertarian, of course not.
Of course not. That's right.
We should get rid of the schools and have everyone being educated by a group of people just coming together to do it.
You sound like Rose Fowler. Careful.
Told you I'm a libertarian.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Honestly, I'm proud to hear that. Go ahead.
Do you have any plans to run for school?
I do not currently.
Are you
You
open?
said you were, the last meeting we had, you said you
Oh,
You said if I have to.
If I have to. I'm not up here tonight campaigning, that's for sure. Not at all. I have a very complex family life. My son requires a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of attention. I am a small business owner. I still work. And I don't do anything for selfish ambition. I really do not. I don't want to do anything where I'm like, yeah, I'll go up there and fix everything. Because it's not that simple. It takes a lot of this, what I'm talking about. When I think about it, I'm like, a school board is not like a CEO board at all. Like, how much time do they put into their jobs, right? This is almost a full-time job all on its own. And the commitment this would require, I would give it, but I wouldn't enter into just talking about something like that for ego or whatever. But if
So
the
you plan on endorsing a candidate sometime down the line?
I don't even know if there are candidates.
Dave,
Are there?
You should run. Honestly, you're the face of this. And like I said, I'm against you, and I think you should run.
That's probably just because you, like, oh, I can't wait to bash you, Dave Novak. Run, Dave. Yeah.
Look, I'm making a note. Bob says run. Bob says run. I don't know. I don't know.
Is there anybody else? Is there anybody else that would want to do it? Is there anybody else that you guys know, hey, Citizens for an Independent Newbury should endorse this person? Lawrence, are you gonna run for school board?
No, but we need a new trustee. Sorry, but we need a new, we're gonna have to have another one.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. So you're gonna run for trustee?
No, I'm about to have a baby. Not this year.
No? Congratulations, Mazel Tov. Go ahead.
Just so we all know what everybody's talking about, there are 2 positions open on the school board this fall, and they are the 2 positions who have been pro-independent Newbury.
Yeah.
Not the ones, so the 3 who are for the consolidation or the transfer are still on the board for another year or how long?
2 years.
2 years.
And probably what'll happen, I mean, if,
So we need somebody to run. Are any of the current board members running? The 2 are up. Are they
But are they
running?
running for re-election?
yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, we
from
can-
what I understand, Marty Sanders is a lifer. Marty Sanders bleeds black and orange. I don't know him very well, but from what I understand, you're gonna pull this school board out of my cold dead hands. That's the kind of guy Marty Sanders is. So I would imagine he would rerun. I don't know if Kirk Simpkins is gonna run. His wife is here, but she probably doesn't want to speak for him. And this whole thing has run like a Disney movie. I was just joking the other day. I'm like, it's kind of laughable to me, the whole, like, how everything came to be. So I wouldn't be surprised if 2 candidates come out of the woodwork that are, gonna be able to go in there and support the efforts of the current board members, and then you gotta think, even if you are elected to the board, is it gonna be a stalwart? Are you gonna be able to even get anything done? There's so many things in question. That's why I say I would never even discuss that lightly.
What is the deadline for candidates?
August.
August.
Don't ask me.
So we will know fairly soon if anyone's running and who they are, and whether we are going to support them or whether we need to come up with a candidate of our own.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's unknown at
Yeah.
this point.
I don't know how candidates typically announce their candidacy. I don't know if it's like they send something to the good news or.
You did 9 o'clock.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock. I don't know how they typically announce their candidacy or whatever, but I would imagine if anybody knows of somebody who wants to be a candidate, you can email us and we'll consider them for, what do you call it? Nomination, not nomination.
Honestly, Dave, you want to get those 2 efforts together, have your candidate and push for the referendum at the same time. That way you cover twice the ground with half the people.
He's right. He's right. So Bob's my campaign manager.
Just don't vote for my candidate. But here's what he's going to do.
Yeah, this crazy son of a bitch. Well, thank you guys. Thank you very much for coming out tonight to the first meeting of the referendum. We'll get referendum efforts refined, and at the next meeting, we'll have everything squared away a little better for you. I thank you.
Good job, David.
Thank you.
You did very well.
David loves that.
That's really good.
Thank you.
You're running crazy too. You're just like, Carrie's gonna nominate you. We're gonna get buttons made. His face is on.